Wolf Theiss Soundshot. Insights and analysis from one of the leading law firms in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe.
Welcome to a new episode of the Wolf Theiss Soundshot, this time with a topic that at first glance may seem rather untypical for a law firm podcast. In May 2021, Wolf Theiss became an ally of Pride Biz Austria, the umbrella organisation of queer businesswomen and Austrian gay professionals. Pride Biz Austria aims to help people and organisations understand why LGBTIQ+ diversity is relevant. Since we as a firm also want to support the LGBTIQ+ community, both in and outside of our professional lives, and to learn more, we invited Astrid Weinwurm-Wilhelm to act as guest speaker today. Astrid is an organisational consultant, supporting organisations in the implementation of diversity management. As the president of Pride Biz Austria, Astrid makes LGBTIQ+ people more visible in the workplace. In this first half of the podcast, Astrid and Christian Mikosch, a partner in our corporate M&A team and an ally in the partnership, discuss the role of LGBTIQ+ diversity at Wolf Theiss, our vision, and why it is vital to build up a rainbow network.
Welcome, Astrid. We are very happy that you joined us and that you are a guest at our podcast. We are eager to learn from you, especially when it comes to diversity, LGBTQ+, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much for having me here, Christian. I'm here on behalf of Pride Biz Austria. Pride Biz Austria is a network for organizations on the topic of LGBT diversity. So we are here to talk about that topic. But Christian, tell me, what is the basis Wolf Theiss starts from in this topic?
Well, diversity was always important to us. Why? Because we built up this law firm in the last 20, 30, 40 years based on diversity. We started off in Vienna and then we had our office in Prague and we spread out over the region. And it was important for us to respect people with different language, different culture, different background. And in fact, it was the strength we always had. It was always this not being the typical Viennese law firm with the typical, way of behaving. It was this openness which was our strength and which enabled us to form this very strong network. And with this came also esprit de corps, where we always saw ourselves as people working together very closely, depending on one another. And it didn't matter whether, somebody was from Albania, Serbia, Czech Republic, whether male or female. It was a very strong sense of community. We also realized that sexual preferences were never an issue at Wolf Theiss. We had people from the community, we had gay and lesbian employees. It never was an issue with us. So that we felt that this is always a strength. There were times where we had many people from the community, which was good fun, and we noticed Pride Biz a few years ago, and I led one of the first initiatives there. And the problem we had was that, people are changing. You don't always have the same number of people from the community here. So, now we have more institutionalized this, and now we have two diversity representatives, one confidentiality person, Vertrauensperson, and also an ally in the partnership, which is my role. Now we have sort of like this base. We are eager to learn what to do next.
Great. I often hear that people say that it's not necessary to speak out all the time on being gay, on being lesbian and being bisexual or even trans and intersex identity. And they say heterosexuals don't talk about their sex lives either. And this is what my starting point is. We need to become aware that heterosexual people do talk about their sexual orientation also all the time. They talk freely about their families and what they did on the weekend. They have, for example, a family portrait or a painting of their child on the desk. And the sexual orientation is often misunderstood as a taboo. One typical answer is, I don't care who is sharing the bed and sheets with whom. So, and my answer always is the sexual orientation does not have to do anything with the bedtime stories. It's about caring for each other, potentially raising children, talking about duties and responsibilities. This is the main issue, or the aha effect, how to make people aware of this topic. Of course, the lesbian and gay community has reached a lot, especially in Austria. We have almost equal rights. But for example, for transgender or intersex people, they still have a long way to go for being realized or respected, tolerated in the society. Just some weeks ago, the National Council, the Nationalrat, decided to forbid the conversion therapy. By that time, I was not aware that it still exists in Austria, but it still exists.
Never heard of it, but it's shocking, yeah.
Yes.
Because we always hear the story, and as lawyers, we immediately think, a client comes to me and says, well, I've been put in conversion therapy, or I would like to put my son into conversion therapy. What do you say? I never thought that this would be a thing in Austria.
Yes.
But it's good. So that's done.
Yes, that's done. But for example, the abolition of IGM practices, which is intersex Genitalverstümmelung, which refers to the operation on interbabies to adapt their body to become more likely a male or female body, this is still outstanding. So this is still legal.
Is it seen as a best practice, by the way, for doctors to do something like that?
I don't know too much about that, but I know that inter people are really suffering physically and psychologically from these operations. Of course, when they are babies, they do not have any opportunity to protest. Of course, I understand that parents are really insecure. They want to give an answer. Is this a boy or a girl? They do not want to answer, I don't know, or it's an intersex baby. So they are really suffering pressure from the doctors. And therefore, they decide to adapt their child to become more a boy or a girl. So this is a real problem, because when the children grow up, most of them don't know. They become aware of their sex situation in a puberty, or when they want to have a child and become aware that their body is different.
There's even a Dr. House episode on that. Just that you know.
Okay, we have to look at that.
And this also answers another question which with some of our listeners would have, and that's the question: what's the difference between intersex and trans? Yeah, because many people don't know that.
Yes.
So if I make it right, it's intersex is when you are like born with in between, so to say.
Exactly.
And trans is, when later in life you
for trans people, the body is male or female. So the biological topic is clear, but the emotional, the social gender topic is unclear. Or let's say the person wants or identifies with another gender than it is biologically defined. So this is the main difference, yes.
And it's interesting, the first time I heard intersexual was actually on a procurement for an international mandate for an international organization, where they asked us, well, how many queer people do you have, how many trans and how many inter? And, when you listen to that the first time, you go like, oh, what? This is, it's going crazy, political correctness is off the rail. But at the end of the day, there is a distinct difference. And, the Anglo-American culture is a little bit different. They have more sort of like this declaration. For us, that would be a real problem to disclose that because of data protection and so on and so forth. But there's definitely an ongoing discussion, and it's important for us to understand these things because, further westwards or at international organizations, people are much more advanced. For them, that's, a typical thing, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that now the discussion on inter and trans people starts to get on, because For lesbian and gay people, we have reached a lot, as I said. They are much more visible. But as long as a society does not know, let's say, about these differences, they don't know that Zwitter, the old-fashioned German term, is not politically correct anymore, and you just name it intersex or intergeschlechtlich. This is a really important basis to start from for their visibility, for allowing them equal rights, for allowing them to change their identity in their documents, let's say. The start is here already with the third gender, third option, but there's a lot more to do. There's in Austria, we have the organization FIMÖ, Verein intergeschlechtlicher Menschen Österreich. They are really engaged in that topic, in the visibility, in supporting the people, and also fighting for the rights of intersex people.
I've often heard the question, well, how many people are those? This is such a marginal topic. Aren't we following now a very marginal agenda, ignoring, much bigger problems? What can be said about that?
Well, the statistics say that between 5 and 15% of world population, and of course also Austrian population, or at Wolf Theiss, are not heterosexual. So they could be lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, inter or trans. So when taking into account these 5 to 15%, this is a relevant number of people. Let's say in Austria we have 8-9 million people, so in entire Austria, so we speak about 800 to 900,000 people who are not heterosexual. And of course, this is a relevant number of employees and also of consumers that you are not taking into account when ignoring that they are here. And one more sentence on the visibility. I often invite people to an experiment. Imagine that you're heterosexual and nobody must know. So what are you telling about your weekend? With whom were you on holidays? And if you always have to talk about your better half, then of course it's getting exhausting, and it takes much energy to play this hide and seek game. Yes, and it's not so easy to not to talk about your second half, let's say. Yeah, and if you understood how this mechanism works, then you also understand what people have to invest for this hiding and construction of a parallel world when they think they cannot be out at their workplace. Because this is what we are talking about today as well. How is it possible to create a working environment which allows people to be out at the workplace? So in my opinion, the employer has to establish this environment to welcome people. So it's not about, we don't know about anybody, so this is why we don't think about that. So first of all, the organization has to create the environment for welcoming, for showing their appreciation of this diverse perspective. It's not only about LGBT perspectives, but also about every other diversity dimension and these perspectives that the people bring into the work, into the processes, into everything in the workplace.
Now, we feel that, that's purely subjective. We feel that we've done a lot. We've come a long way, especially at Wolf Theiss, because as I said before, at certain times we had, a large community of gay and lesbian people. We have them out and proud, never an issue. At the parties, things like that were almost celebrated. Yeah? We never had an issue with that. How much, in your experience, are we cheating ourselves? Do we think, part of our people are out and proud, we are cool? Is that it? We have a diversity representative, everybody can come out now. It's obviously safe, at least in Vienna.
Yeah, at least in Vienna, that's a good point. But let's start on the general topic. I guess you have done a lot of work already, having some person or various persons installed for the topic. But in my opinion, it's always necessary not only making visible the measures internally, but also making them visible outside. So What about the website? Is there a category on this is our diversity mission, these are our values? Do people from outside see this employer is taking care of the diversity dimensions, is doing this and that on diversity? What about the HR and recruitment processes, for example? Where do you promote your open positions? How are they addressing these various diversity dimensions? What is part of the onboarding process, for example? What are the first leadership trainings and whatever? Is there diversity included? And how do leaders become inclusive leaders? So inclusive leadership means recognizing the value of diversity and then leading. So every person can bring into their perspectives, their variety of views, and also their values. Again, concerning every diversity dimension, but of course also LGBT diversity. And one thing which is very important and has to be repeated very often, the commitment from the top management. This is our vision, these are our values, and within these values, of course, we have this visibility of the diversity idea, of the commitment. We know that every person has a variety of perspectives, and we are happy to take this into account. So not thinking as a white, male, well-educated person, but to taking into account every perspective. Of course, this sounds a little idealistic, but still it's a try, and this means inclusive leadership. So on the one hand, we have it from the top management, but also on the management, on the middle management or team leads. Also, these people have to know what diversity management is and how to recognize that this variety of perspectives is really valuable. So this has also to do with training, and of course here we are in a law firm and people have to deal with law and be expert in their law field, but also they are leaders, they are team leaders, and so this is an important aspect to be taken into account. And then what else could be done on diversity management? Things like fringe benefits, for example, to all employees independently of their family status. For example, in other companies we have family insurance policies, partner contracts for mobile phones, or parental leaves, part-time working offered to every form of family. And then, of course, a networking with NGOs, such as Pride Biz Austria, for exchange and networking with others, for developing the organization, for developing the working climate, and to learning from each other, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I can see that, and I can see the value of this, and I've been to a few Pride Biz events, and going there with the sense of, we got everything under control, we are the good ones, and then learning a lot was a great experience. Yeah, there are so many stories which are shared where you go like, yes, we didn't think of that. So that's definitely work in progress, and that's definitely something which we have to do. For us, it's important that people know that we are a safe place with regard to this, and we also realize there's a lot to do. Trying to promote diversity in our workspace goes also to the promotion process. This is something we always don't want to use the word struggling, but this is always work in progress. How can we get better? How can we sort of like open up the career path so that everybody realizes it's not, your background, it's not the color of your skin, the language you speak, it's just really your abilities and how good you are with what you do. This is what we are looking for, and it's so important to repeat that to ourselves and also to all the people who would like to join us, because we see that as actually a great asset to stay ahead of the competition, also to have this kind of openness and diversity. And as I said, we have already experienced how important that is to leave the sort of like Austro-Vienna centric perspective white, German-speaking, and we got past that. And that was, again, that's the key to our success, and that's what we want to promote.
You mentioned a safe space and the Viennese hub, and of course, as an international law firm being represented in Central Eastern European countries, of course, this is also a really important aspect, how to create a safe space for the people working in the countries where LGBTIQ topics are not as far as here in Vienna or here in Austria, or being taken back, let's say, the right. So I think here it is really important to transport the people working in these countries. We offer you a safe space and we allow you to be as you are, even if in your country it is not so easy at the moment.
But that's on the one hand, that's clear. I mean, that's the message we've sent out on the management level. But you are, of course, depending on people. And, if you have one partner, counsel, senior associate in Vienna or anywhere, making stupid gay or lesbian jokes that may destroy so much and sort of hurt that kind of progress. And then you need to build up trust once again. So that's definitely work in progress as always, and that's something we need to get to grips on. How do you report that? How do you identify behavior like that? Do you penalize it? How do you approach that? Because it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for part 2 of Do Ask, Do Tell, LGBTIQ+ and the legal industry, which will be released on 28th October, and find out why awareness is key, why it is important to mention every single letter of LGBTIQ+, and many more answers to those questions you might not have liked to ask before.